What's going on, everybody? LK here, and if there's one thing that I know y'all gamers really like, it is speed. Gamers love speed, the real hardcore, right? And there's one thing that people like about fighting games, and this holds up especially in classic fighting games, it's the outright speed of the game. But speed itself is a pretty general concept, right? People would think different things when they're thinking about the speed of a game itself. So some people would talk about the movement. So talking about the speed of runs, jumps, air dashes. There are plenty of games that seem really fast paced just because of how characters can move around the screen. Some people would get a little bit more technical than that though, and they would talk about frames. So they would talk about the attacks and how fast attacks are and how can you deal with them. So every attack is split into startup frames, active frames, and recovery frames. And together, that is the total duration of the move. So when you do a move like this, then we have a portion of it that's active. So that's the part where there's an active hitbox, like it can actually hit something. And then at the end of the move, we have recovery frames, which is how long it takes for you to return back to being able to do stuff. Most people usually talk about startup frames or active frames or recovery frames independently of each other, but for the sake of speed in general, just like a general concept, sometimes we look at the move in total, the total duration. Generally, light moves, jabs have really fast total duration, where heavier attacks take much longer. This makes sense. But there's one aspect that people tend not to touch on, and it's a term called hit stop. So any smashers watching this, y'all call this hit lag. Lag is kind of derogatory, I'm not gonna lie. I don't like calling things laggy, but y'all do you. I'm kidding. So Infill's fighting game glossary, shoutouts to Infill, I have a link to that in the description of course, defines hit stop as an extremely brief moment where the game pauses for dramatic effect whenever an attack successfully hits. If you increase how many frames an attack's hit stop lasts for, you can greatly exaggerate the power and force of a strike, and usually when you feel like an attack is beefy, it is because of this. And you can see this pretty clearly when you look at moves from this perspective. Like when I make Ramafal block light moves like Chips 5k, nothing really happens. Like we both see that it happens, but it's a really light tick. However, if I do like a 5H, it has way more impact. You can actually see, funny enough from the description, the camera visually shake a little bit, giving the move a little bit more impact. Why is hit stop important and what does it do? Like why does this thing matter? So one, we do have the visual impact. The faster the game, the more important the total duration of moves are going to be, because again, the light attacks will have a low hit stop and low total duration, while the heavier attacks will have higher total duration and more hit stop. So for example, Giovanna. Why is it so easy to defend against a new Giovanna player, like someone who's just picking her up? The reason is a lot of new Giovanna players structure their pressure around her slash and heavy slash button, specifically this one because it's advantageous. While this is good and makes sense, one of the things that makes this easy to deal with and why a lot of people kind of mistakenly think that her offense is not good is that you have a lot of time to see this move happen. Because it is a high attack level, so it has a lot of blocks done, and consequently, it has a bunch of hit stop too. So you just have plenty of time to see what's going on and be like, okay, I block close slash, this, that, and the other thing can come. I'll use like faultless defense or something to keep her out. We're defending against her jabs and kicks are much more difficult. This move has a ton of options. She can jump cancel, she can Gatling out of it, she can repeat it because it's only -2, so she can act again pretty quickly. So from beginning to the end, her 5k is 6 frame startup, 4 frame active, and 10 frame recovery. So that's 20 frames total. So you really don't have a lot of time to select against her options off this, especially of how fast it can come. So one thing people really like to do against this move is that it's actually punchable by throw. So they'll see it and kind of just gamble on this, but it's kind of hard to see in general. So if you're not sure what she's going to do, especially because she has a lot of options off it, you don't have a lot of time to make another choice. These we jokingly call like jump scares because we're like, you have to act so fast to deal with whatever is coming after this thing. Once you get to moves like these have such low total duration that you really can't see what is happening at all, and by the time you see the move, the opponent is already doing something else. Now the good news is they don't get a lot of return if they hit you with these. There's not much you can add on here. Or with 5k, being put in multiple situations like this quickly is very difficult to deal with. Another application of hit stop is basic competitive technique. So if you're a new fighting game player, you may or may not know about these, but if you've been competing a little bit, you definitely would, which would call the hit stop option select. So the idea is that the game freezes during hit stop, so you can input something else. So when moves don't connect, the game just keeps going, but when moves do connect, you freeze for a little bit because the hit stop has to be applied. As a simple example, I'm going to stay with Geo. We all love Geo. And I'm going to do a hit stop OS against Chip. So we're going to get this throw here. And if I block, she's just going to do her string. But if I do his reversal option here, then a super comes out. And if I backdash, again, the super will come out. So the reason why is hidden in my inputs. So I have this freeze frame here for perspective. So you can see that I am jumping, I'm air dashing, jumping in, doing jump H, but during the jump H, I'm inputting my super. So I'm inputting it with a timing specifically that it will only come out if my jump heavy whiffs for whatever reason. So in that example, of course, my jump heavy did not connect, so no super. If my jump heavy does not connect, my super is going to come out. In this screenshot, you can see my jump heavy, and then me inputting super and me hitting the next button. So the next button, which was crouching slash, is being input where this super flash would be. So the inputs overlap in a way where one set of inputs only happens if my opponent blocks, and the other set of inputs only happen if my opponent is invincible for whatever reason. And the main difference is that I input the super in hit stop. It goes without saying that this is a powerful technique when you apply it correctly. But there's another angle to this too even. So hit stop can make things easier or harder to deal with and can make the game look fast or really slow. So let's look at an example of something that it gets harder to deal with because there's no hit stop on an attack. One example of a move being hard to deal with because it has low hit stop actually comes from Chip. For the educated eye, I did have to lower the version. This is not Rev 2, this is Rev 1. Here's an example of a move that's really hard to deal with because of no hit stop, right? So we have Chip, he's going to be doing close slash, close slash. So in this game, the total duration of Chip's close slash is 16 frames, and it is +2. So you have really no time to see this. Basically, by the time that you see him do this, he's already doing something else and it's advantage. The general strategy against this is to try to just preemptively push him out with faultless defense, because you just don't have time to act. This is a pretty common theme in pressuring GG in general, where you'll use something that has really, really fast total duration, and your opponent either has to kind of lean into you doing it and act quickly if they have a specific response, or pick something passive to just like either ease what can come later or maybe set up a punish. Unfortunately, you got to put on your old school, your 360p glasses, but in order to show an example of a lot of hit stop, what that does to the game, I'm actually bringing up BBCS2 because if you play BB like BBCF, you might notice that, especially if you know Makoto Nanya, who's playing on the left and doing all the comboing, that it's not just that these combos are long, but they also have like way more impact because her drive, so her, I mean, she's a punch girl, you know, like she's punching you and stuff. That's literally what her drive is. She can charge up a punch and launch you different ways, but it has a ton of hit stops. So you can quite literally see characters freeze on every single hit that she does. A combination of the high hit stop and how combos worked in BBCS1 and BBCS2 led to the way that Arxis has kind of balanced combos over the years between those two games, and also Persona has a pretty big impact. So you're going to see, for example, again, every time this character gets a hit and does one of the charge punches, the character literally freezes in place, like a very, very visible hit stop. Definitely the opposite of what we saw with Chip. Also, the damage is really high. But if we compare it to BBCP Makoto, where they made these major hit stop changes, in this game, they basically cut the hit stop of absolutely everything. So even the highest, strongest moves, a lot of the impact comes from them like sticking or ground bouncing, and way less from the actual hit itself, which in the end, it creates an effect where it's not like the combos got shorter. So they shortened the combo length in pretty aggressively, let's say, in BBCS extend, but by reducing the hit stop of everything, the game just looks way faster. So the movement was always there, but now the impact of everything is a little bit less, and the game just flows a lot faster. And this is pretty much what modern BlazBlue looks like now. Let me know what you guys think. Hit stop is a really important ingredient for speed in fighting games that people don't really talk about. So I definitely wanted to touch on it a little bit. As usual, if you guys have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.